Hey guys, what's going on? Paul here. Welcome back to another Cardano video. And today I'm sitting down with two different teams, the Maya protocol and the Maestro team, who are looking to bring cross-chain swaps to Cardano in a decentralized way. So I've got members from both teams here today. Some people will be familiar with Marvin. He's been on before when we've been talking about Genius Yield. So Marvin, I'm going to start out with you, and then we're going to go around with everybody else to give a brief introduction, and we'll get into the main topics then. So guys, thanks for joining me.
Yes, yeah, thanks. It's good to be here again. And yeah, so I'm Marvin. So I'm one of the co-founder and CEO at Maestro. And Maestro is a kind of leading infrastructure provider on Cardano. So we provide, a suite of APIs and developer tools to build and power dApps backends, right? From anything from wallets, DEXs, lending protocols, you name it. You can really leverage Maestro to streamline your development and build your application.
Nice. And Verderes, you're here from Maestro too. Do you want to give a quick intro to yourself?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. My name is Verderes. I am the co-founder and CTO at Maestro, and we've made lots of progress in the last 2 years since our founding. And we want to build, the best products for developers out there. And, we're a very product-driven company. And I think, bringing in cross-chain swaps to Cardano, or helping bring that in, will just make the overall user experience better for people in our ecosystem. So really excited to be here and talk about what we can do.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely bringing cross-chain swaps is something that's needed. And no one chain is going to be where everybody stays for the rest of their time in crypto. And on Maestro, speaking from firsthand from using it, it's definitely a really good tool for any developers coming in to get easy access to data. Even if you go and try and expand later on, it lets you build up any bit of your application really quickly in the beginning. And Alex from Maya, do you want to give an introduction to yourself? And then we'll get into Maya protocol and what exactly it is.
Yeah, well, this is Alex, co-founder and lead of Maya protocol. We founded Maya 2 years ago, launched last year, and are currently with an operating chain, cranking out swaps every day. So yeah, very excited to bring it all to Cardano, and been very happy to work with Maestro team as our very, very helpful guides in the Cardano ecosystem. So thank you guys.
Nice. So there is Catalyst proposals to help get this, help to get this to Cardano quicker, and we'll get into them in a few minutes. But to give people more of an understanding about what Maya is and how it works itself and how it's different to, we say, a bridge. We have bridges in Cardano where you can bridge in USDT or BTC or any of that kind of stuff, but there's always a risk because you're still relying on the assets sitting on another chain. So what is Maya, how does it actually work? And then we'll get into the Cardano option then.
Yeah, no, great question. So, okay. First off, Maya is more like an Uniswap, or I think you guys on Cardano have stuff like Sunday Swap and stuff like that, which is an AMM, right? Pools and you swap. Maya is the same. The only difference is instead of having pools of assets within a chain, we have pools of assets of different chains. And you hit the nail right in the head about how is this different from a bridge. The problem with a bridge is that the time dimension is increased. The risk in the bridge is borne by the community, by the users, by whoever is using these services for the whole time that they're holding that bridged asset in the target chain. So if you have, I don't know, some wrapped BTC on Cardano, that wrapped BTC is in some user's wallet. And all the time that it's sitting in that wallet, it's generating risk for the user. Now, in Maya, which is a friendly fork of Thorchain, by the way, what you do is you actually swap Bitcoin to ADA in Cardano. And if you are in Cardano and you want BTC, you swap to BTC in a Bitcoin address directly. So you're never holding these assets for a long time. You're just swapping in a split second in a trustless manner. By having these time dimension decrease so short, even if the risks of Maya were equivalent to those of the bridge, which they're not for other reasons that we can also get gladly into. Even if they were equivalent, just because it's for a split minute, the actual risk is much lower, because typically these wrapped assets are held in these ecosystems for way a long time. So anyway, that's kind of a quick talk on that. We can go in how it works if you like. We can go into or history or something, but at the end of the day, it's just a cross-chain Uniswap that enables swaps to and from Bitcoin, ETH, Kuji, Dash. We have Rune as well from Thorchain, so you can access all the assets on Thorchain. And we're looking forward to having Cardano online as soon as we can.
Nice. Yeah, I've lots of different questions there, and Marvin and Varderas, interrupt at any stage if you want to put in questions. So we'll concentrate on Maya first and then get back towards you guys then, and how the interaction is going between you or the partnership for this. But you said it's a fork of Thorchain. Are there big differences between Thorchain and yourselves, or what direction are you going in?
Yeah, so mainly we're looking to be an extension of Thorchain to bring Thorchain technology to more chains, because there is a practical limit, kind of like a bandwidth for something like Thorchain and Maya to have. We cannot have 30 chains each, right? It's a limited amount of chains which can integrate. So in that regard, we're functioning like an extension. That's why we also have Rune itself, so that we can aggregate with each other. Any asset from Maya can swap to any asset on Thorchain. But we also took the opportunity to make a few changes. For instance, we have something called liquidity nodes. So our validators bond their collateral, but instead of bonding it in Cacao, which is our Rune equivalent, they bond it in LP units instead. So it's like an inverse liquid staking derivative in a sense. What this allows is just for greater capital efficiency and thus greater perceived yield. This allowed us also to make our token non-inflationary whatsoever. And yeah, we're planning on doing some more stuff that is inherent to like native to our project, like bringing smart contracts to this. And we're also planning to keep bringing on futures Thorchain currently has, such as streaming swaps that were dramatically successful to the volume Thorchain is operating with.
Okay, so from my understanding, it's like a cross-chain DEX, really, a cross-chain AMM DEX. So there has to be a pool to make a swap through. So generally on AMM DEXs, anybody who's got involved will be familiar with, you have to put in two assets into it, and you get incentivized generally by the fees and by yield farming. But with yourselves, what's the incentive for people to actually provide the assets? And if I have ADA that I want to provide, do I have to provide two assets into the pool? Would I have to put BTC on one side and ADA? Or how does that side of things work? Because obviously you need good liquidity, deep liquidity, to have a good trading experience for the users.
Definitely. So all assets on Maya are paired with Cacao, just like all assets on Thorchain are paired with Rune. This is useful for a few reasons. Main being you require less pools, since you can, if you want to go ADA to Bitcoin, you just have one very deep pool of ADA Cacao and one very deep pool of BTC Cacao. Right now we have around $40 million TVL, for instance. So that's one thing. So typically you would add both assets, and any swap that goes from or to ADA goes to that ADA Cacao pool and pays fees. And these fees are shared with LPs. Additionally, you can bond those LP units to a validator, just like you would delegate ADA to a node on Cardano, and get extra yield on top. But all of this yield is real yield. It comes from the swapping. It's not incentivized or subsidized by any sort of system inflation. Now, that said, there is also a feature coming online soon that's called Savers, which allows you to have just one asset exposure to ADA in this case. So you would be adding ADA and not cacao, and you're only exposed to the price risk of ADA, but the yield is smaller. Now, the amount of ADA that's permitted into the savers vaults is limited as a percentage of the pool depth, since at the end of the day, the pool is underwriting the redeemability of that ADA to that one-sided LP.
Okay, yeah, I think sometimes people are afraid to go in and provide liquidity on AMM dexes because of the risk of impermanent loss. Generally, if you can have yield farming or extra yields coming in there, that's what makes up the risk that people are taking. And if there is a one-sided option, I think that's definitely a good play to have. So with the proposal that you guys have in to bring this to Cardano, how does that work, or where does the partnership come between the two teams here?
Go ahead, Marvin.
Yeah, so under the hood, when the process of adding a new chain is each node operator runs a full node of that chain. So you have a set of node operators in that protocol that are like witnessing transactions happening, and they're each running the full node of Bitcoin, full node, the full Ethereum node. And so then we're going to help out do the integration of integrating a full Cardano node, right? And so as infrastructure provider, we have a lot of experience running Cardano nodes. And then there's like extra compatibility upgrades that needs to happen. So certain of the cryptographic primitives that Cardano is using, I can't remember the name, but are slightly different from the rest. So that's where the first Catalyst proposal is to kind of upgrade the protocol to make it compatible to the Cardano primitives. And then the second proposal is around kind of battle testing everything, helping run that new cluster, adding the Cardano node. And that's a good thing, that the Cardano node relatively is not too heavy computationally compared to maybe other chain, which helps for other node operators, to run it themselves, because node operators, every time they add a new chain, right, they increase the cost, their operational cost, and so that is kind of balanced out by the new volume and the new fees that they can collect by connecting to a new node, and so that's really where Maestro kind of comes in and helps with that integration.
Okay, so every validator on the network has to run one node for each. So does this come back to what you said about Thorchain, and where you can only run so many networks, really? Because would this be one of the reasons for that? The requirement to have to run a node for each network that Maya support?
And also there is like the signing process, I think, is based on like a TSS multi-sig. It's more complex. It's not a multi-sig, it's like a multi-party computation. And that requires, there's a bit of like throughput limits there, but maybe Alux can extend more about that.
Yeah, there are throughput limits, but they can start to be... Okay, so we have something called Asgard sharding, which is having multiple vaults actually per chain. So you'll have 20, 30, or 40 validators sharing a vault or a wallet on Cardano with a threshold signature scheme, and transactions can be batched. So the main limiting factor is not the TSS. Instead, the main limiting factor is Tendermint technology, which is also what powers most Cosmos chains. It's what powers the application-specific blockchain Maya is. So yeah, that is currently limited at around 120, 130 nodes. We are looking for the medium term to perhaps increase that limit to 200, 250. And the reason we have these limitations is because something called instant finality. Now, you're all familiar, on Bitcoin and also with Ouroboros, that you do have some waiting time from your transaction being introduced in a block, and that block actually being confirmed or kind of trustworthy that it's made it into the chain in a more finalized state. So this is great for what Cardano and Bitcoin are trying to be, which is kind of money, right? You're trying to be money. You're trying to be permeated as something that's truly trustless and globalized. Whereas in the case of Maya, Maya is trying to be a service, a cross-chain service. And what you want there, if you're swapping between chains that are incompatible in an agnostic way, right? You're not doing EVM to EVM. You're doing like UTXO to EUTXO to EVM to Cosmos-based to anything else that we come up in the future. What you really need is that you don't add an extra layer of uncertainty to the process. You already have uncertainty on confirmation in the origin chain. You have it in the target chain. What you want is a very deterministic process to happen in your state layer. So Maya benefits greatly from being instant finality because nodes actually agree that a block is valid ahead of creating it. So when the block is added to the chain, it's already completely confirmed. It's final. That's why we call it instant finality. So the problem though is since you need pre-confirmation from everybody, we actually do 3 rounds. Like Tendermint does 3 rounds of the pre-vote, pre-commit, and then commit the block per block. And we have blocks every 6 seconds. The problem starts being network latency. So you have validators all over the world operating on their bare metal infrastructure. That starts to become a problem. The real thing here in Maya is first understanding we're a service. Second, understanding that we're trying to be better than the competition, the alternative, which is a centralized exchange under one guy that can have FTX episodes. But finally, at the end of the day, validators are permissionless. Anybody can become one, and it requires a large collateral. So the trustlessness comes from the game theory and the permissionlessness and being open source, not really from having kind of tens of thousands of nodes, which is desirable when you want to be money again, but not in this case when we want to be a viable, transparent, trustless, decentralized exchange.
Hey Alex, I have a question for you, just curiosity, and I think it could be interesting. How do you determine in each of these different chains what is considered a valid block? Is that like a configured amount? Is that something that the validators agree on? Like what is that for each of the chains?
It's on the code how we kind of manage and interpret blocks on a chain. There's this thing called Bifrost. Bifrost is essentially the layer in Maya that's observing blocks and their transactions in the target chains and kind of communicating those transactions over to Maya node, which is the consensus layer. Now, Bifrost has the observing client and the signer client. So in one, we observe transactions coming into our addresses, another one, we sign transactions going out. In the observer, that observer needs to analyze the blocks. So this is called the block scanner. And the block scanner is just constantly storing blocks from the chain that we're talking about in this case. And that block scanner will work in some way. Now, in Bitcoin, for instance, obviously, it's just following the long chain rule. And depending, now this is where we get very creative because we want to have high throughput and we want to be able to have transactions fast, but we also don't want to risk having a transaction be orphaned, right? A transaction that we saw on Bitcoin, we sent you your ETH, and then all of a sudden, or inbound transaction on Bitcoin is pulled out of the consensus, right? So essentially, what we analyze is the size of the transaction is directly proportional to how much the malicious attacker can profit off of doing this trick, right? Essentially tricking miners or our full nodes that our transaction did happen and then it actually not happening, right? So essentially what we do is the larger the transaction is, the longer the wait time in Bitcoin, in blocks we're going to wait for in order for us to process a transaction. So a very small transaction, $50, we will even wait just one block, because it wasn't worth it for an attacker to do all of that trick for $50. They would do it at a loss, actually, also because of fees and everything else. But if you're transacting $50 million, which of course has never happened yet for Maya, but it could, it would probably actually take 2 days to confirm, which would make it nearly impossible for an attacker to trick having a longer chain than the rest of the network to all of our validators. So now this is the logic specific to Bitcoin, but other chains work differently. In Kujira, we don't need to wait. It's instant finality. If they're giving us a block, it's final. We can treat it as finalized, and we don't need any confirmation times. On Cardano, when we are developing this, and this is one of the many things we have to work with Cardano researchers and test it and try it out and see how it works, and also iteratively improve on it, is what to do with the Ouroboros consensus mechanism. When do we observe a transaction? When do we assume it's confirmed and ready to go? How do we process, refunds? There's so many questions we need to answer in all of these that we have a huge checklist of everything we do per chain, plus other things that might be chain specific. So that would be just part of the work to be done. But good question, very good question.
No, I mean, super. Yeah, no, it's very exciting to be working on this. It's a very core problem to this collaboration, and the answer is not clear. So I'm really looking forward to working on this with you guys.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we can also start being a bit more conservative.
Yeah,
Thorchain just
500 blocks. No,
yeah, Thorchain just did, because we also have an outbound delay.
Yeah.
The larger the transaction is, even though we already think it's confirmed in the inbound, we still want to make sure it's okay for the outbound, right? We want to allow the network to have some kind of response time, the larger the transaction is. And this is called the outbound delay, and it's something that Thorchain implemented after the 2021 hacks they had, along with many other security measures. Like we have, for instance, a solvency check. We're constantly checking how much Maya thinks we should have versus what we actually observe we have in the validators observe we have in the wallet. And if it's different, we halt, right? We halt the Cardano service in order for the network to see what's going on, perhaps fix it, perhaps it's nothing, and just nodes vote to unhalt it. Now, I mentioned this because Thorchain just introduced a new update 2 days ago called Swapper Cloud, where as many swappers are regulars. They're arbitrage, they're just heavy users, and they pay fees. So these fees are essentially used, what they've paid historically is kind of, Thorchain's logic is, look, they've already paid these. If they were to steal these, we broke even. So in any transaction below this amount, I will completely void any outbound delay. I will pay it that second. Because worst case scenario, the chain broke even on this user, and not all users are malicious. So essentially, this has reduced waiting times for outbounds to happen. So again, Thorchain went very conservative, and now they're relaxing. Likewise, on Cardano, we might go and say, we will have to wait so many,
epochs.
So many epochs before we say like this is confirmed. Maybe it's 3 minutes, maybe it's 5 minutes.
Epochs would be a lot. Yeah.
And then we can start decreasing. No, you mean the epoch?
I was joking. Yeah. It won't be epochs, but yeah.
There's a shorter measure. I read the white paper a long time ago, but there's a short-term measure that where things are ordered. I think that is a good one to have, like 3, 4, 5 of those. And we just have to look also empirically. At the end of the day, this integration is also more empirical than theoretical. We have to see and how often have reorgs happened, when did they happen, how far back did they ever happen. If they don't in practice, we can be more lax. But yeah.
So just to summarize that for people, my next question wasn't around how long it would take someone to move assets across, because they might look at, well, I could move it to a centralized exchange and take it out. Obviously, that's not the ideal path. But if I wanted to take 5,000 USD, stablecoins are probably going to be the most popular one that people want to either bring in or take assets out into. What would be the general timeline for something like that? I know there's a lot of variables you mentioned there, but are we talking about 10 minutes or are we talking about a day or something for the likes of 5K?
Yeah, it depends on the chain you're coming from and you're going to. For instance, ETH is generally not too time consuming. So blocks are 15 seconds. If you're doing a $5,000 transaction from Cardano to USDT on ETH, it might take 2 or 3 minutes, something like that. And don't forget, this is going from your address on Cardano to your address on Ethereum, like your keys, your coins. So some people sometimes compare, hey, but that's a lot on my central exchange. I just click it and it happens in 1 second. Yeah, that was just a database, like a local database change for the central exchange to do. They didn't actually move any assets around. If you count when you sent the ADA to the exchange, then you swapped, and then you sent the USDT from the exchange to your wallet into account, it definitely was longer than 3 minutes. So that's kind of where it's apple to apples. But yeah, the larger the transaction is, the longer you can expect it to take. And if your source chain or target chain are slow, like Bitcoin is at the end of the day, blocks are 10 minutes, then that adds to the time bill. But if you're doing right now, if you did Kuji to Dash, which are the two fastest chains we have, it's like less than a minute if it's a small transaction.
Okay, nice. And fee-wise then, so obviously you have the fees on your own chain, but what additional fees would users have then for going through this process?
So yeah, you pay the gas fees on the source chain yourself. So if you're sending, 100 ADA and the gas is 0.1 ADA, then you sent 100.1, and Maya received just 100. So that one, it was like footed by yourself. We will then compute the swap. Let's say you went to Kuji, or let's say Bitcoin. So we will compute how much Bitcoin you should receive by kind of doing a double swap, ADA, Cacao, Bitcoin, right? Now, in both of those swaps, you paid something called slip fee, which is essentially the fees that's going to the LPs. It's computed with something we call CLP derivation that was coined by Thorchain. Very interesting how that works. But essentially, that fee is actually quite small if it's a small transaction, and that fee also becomes greater the bigger the transaction is. Essentially, the logic behind it is the more you destabilize the pool, causing impermanent loss, causing loss to arbitrage, the more you destabilize the pool with your transaction, the more I'm going to charge you to make up for my LPs. And that's how also, so it's not a flat rate of 0.3% or something like that. That actually makes no sense in this setting. But anyway, it will calculate both slip fees and discount that from the output. And then it will also it also constantly observes the gas fees of the target chain, in this case, Bitcoin, and then will charge you 1.5x that. So a bit more, just in case the fees spike during the process. The reserve has that tolerance to not have that transaction be loss making on the reserve. So yeah, essentially at the end of the day, you pay gas fees on Cardano, slip fees twice for each of the two pools that obviously they're meant to be very deep, like millions of dollars deep. And then finally 1.5x the gas on the outbound. And all of that is taken care of by Maya. So you don't need to have Cacao to do the swap. You don't need to have Bitcoin. You just have ADA, and you tell us to which address to send your Bitcoin, and everything will be taken care of by the Maya node logic.
Okay, and just on that, on the slippage, streaming swaps you mentioned at the start, that's going to be coming in the future. Is that where, I might have the understanding wrong on this, but you break up the transaction basically and it happens over a longer period of time rather than doing a market sell of $100,000 into the pool, it would be into 10K blocks or something like that. Is that
fewer blocks? It has a maximum of 1 day, but most transactions in practice take like 10, 20, 30 minutes more than they would as a normal market swap. The streaming swap, what it does is you send the ADA, Maya receives the ADA once, but then will stream, and that's why they call it streaming swaps. They will stream that swap in small intervals of 1 block. So every block, let's say you as a user chose to break it up in, I don't know, 100 sub swaps, right? So it will send 100th every time through the pools and give opportunity also for ARBs in every block to arbitrage back the price to the fair rate. And then it will do that 100 times. And once it accumulated all of the Bitcoin, it will send the Bitcoin in 1 transaction. So you also just paid gas fees once in both chains, but now the slip was decreased greatly. And in practice, this actually 20x Thorchain's daily volume. And so far, they've had huge transactions. Like, I think the biggest now has been like $10 million in 1 swap. And there is, because of the nature of instant finality and how slip fees work and how transactions are ordered by the one paying the most fees to less fees, there has been no sandwich attack, no MEV, no stuff like that. And the thing is, swaps are completely public. You can track them in the 9 Realms transaction tracker, see all of those transactions being streamed, and all the players are incentivized to make that transaction at the best settlement possible, since arbitrage will earn, LPs will earn, nodes will earn, and there's no possibility for anybody to reorder or do stuff like that. So far in practice, it's been a hell of a feature, and we're looking forward to having it on Maya in the next few weeks.
Oh, great. And timeline, so for if proposals go in, catalyst voting, and by the time I get this out, I'm not sure if voting will have started or will be starting in the next day or so. But what kind of timeline will we be looking at to have swaps live for Cardano?
Go ahead, Marvin. A bit on the catalyst proposal details, and then I can give my 2 cents there.
Yeah, so we have 2 proposals. So we wanted to break it down into more digestible chunks. So the first one, I can't remember, it should be a couple of months, I think maybe 4 to 5 months of upgrading the protocol itself. And by the way, everything is open source. Everything will be allowed, people will allow to run those Cardano nodes and on the Maya protocol. And so it's upgrading the primitives and kind of getting that audited and passed to kind of all the security checks. And so that should be kind of like the first win of the proposal. And the second proposal could be a bit shorter, where it's around just more stress testing the system, kind of deploying them in on the network, and then kind of onboarding new node providers to start using the Cardano node. And then also what we call like liquidity bootstrapping. So it's kind of seeding the pools with some initial ADA and cacao to kind of help the initial swaps. And because the fees are proportional to slippage, you don't want to start with an empty pool, because then the slippage is higher and the fees are higher, which is by design, right? Because you want to prevent swaps that create too much slippage. But that's where you want to attract more liquidity, and because of the higher fees, then that should attract more liquidity providers to bring liquidity, and then get to a certain depth where it kind of like balances itself out. So that's kind of like the roadmap that we have.
You're on mute, Alex.
Thank you. More on the specifics. So Cardano uses Edwards curve for signing, EDDSA. Thorchain and Maya today only use ECDSA for the threshold signature scheme. So that the first step is actually having that work done for EDDSA signatures. Thankfully, Thorchain now is also working on Solana, which uses that similar signature. So, we will have the chance to kind of collaborate on that work, both teams, and that should make it go faster. And After that, we work on the integration, and that usually takes 2 weeks or something like that, which doesn't sound like a lot. But then comes the real toughie, which is testing. So we first do something called mocknet testing, where we're mocking everything that happens in Cardano and Maya and making sure everything works. Then something called smoke testing, which simulates hundreds of swaps of Cardano on Maya and kind of make sure that every detail is airtight and that's highly conserved through version updates in the future. Then we do something called stage testing, which is, in this case, we have a Maya chain that's actually just like mainnet, because it works with real Cardano, real Bitcoin, real Ethereum, real Kujira, but we just agree it's not the real one. So it doesn't have any serious liquidity. Pools are very, very shallow, but it's a real deal. So we do some testing there. And once everything is tight, we need to then also do the audit work to make sure we didn't make any assumptions, that there's not any kind of edge case we're not taking into account. And after that is, like Marvin says, the bootstrapping of liquidity. Well, actually launching first to the nodes, having them churn to create a vault, and then bootstrapping the liquidity, and then turning on the swaps. So it's a lengthy process. We have some details on the proposal, and of course it will just take work and time. And precisely the funding is meant to help us assign the resources in earnest, so that we can do it in a timely manner. At the end of the day, Maya is going ahead with Cardano integration anyway. The first time we spoke in public in 2021 during Consensus over in Austin, we actually spoke about wanting to integrate Cardano. So it's been in our DNA from the beginning. I'm an avid ADA staker. So we like Cardano a lot, and we will end up doing it. This just helps us accelerate the timeline quite a bit, and also increase the chances that it succeeds, and it has deep liquidity, and it has, because the Cardano ecosystem would have skin in the game, which I think is also important.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose the faster we get it, the better it is for the overall ecosystem. I think stablecoins is something we have some in Cardano, but we are lacking as well, and bringing more liquidity in through that. And I like this alternative to a bridge. Bridges are good, but personally, I don't really hold any funds in a bridge. If I do bridge assets, I get them out of the bridged asset fairly quickly and into another asset on the chain that I'm going to. It's just a bit of a security thing that I'm just not comfortable holding larger amounts longer term. But anything we haven't covered here, I will put links to the proposals down below for anyone who wants to check them out. And Catalyst voting should be open now or open in the next day or two for anyone watching this. Make sure you get in, you take a look at all the proposals, not just the ones we're talking about here. Get involved, do participate in voting, and I'll hand it over to you guys for any closing thoughts or anything we missed.
Yeah, one small thing is that it's very useful for dexes and wallets to extend their feature to become cross-chain. So the Maya protocol is kind of like a cross-chain swap backend, and so it integrates actually with a number of cross-chain wallets and a number of dexes. And so dexes like MinSwap may become available on other wallets or on the projects, and vice versa, right? So in terms of the benefit for Cardano, it now gives access to Cardano assets to all these other protocols that are integrated with Maya. Now they cannot just buy ADA, they can buy straight up like Cardano assets straight from these integrations, and vice versa. Now our Cardano dexes, our Cardano wallets will have direct access to swap into native assets on all these other chains. And so it really kind of like increases kind of like the injection of potential capital into the Cardano ecosystem, but also the potential new users that now have an easy way to buy Cardano tokens and then slowly get more involved into our DApp and ecosystem.
Yeah, I would also like to add, Thorchain might have something called affiliate fees, and this is a fee that goes to the wallet that facilitates the swap to Maya. This affiliate fees goes directly to the team managing that wallet. So it's a direct strategy for monetization that also increases the infrastructure built around projects we integrate. So it's just a new way for builders in Cardano to monetize their work, their audience, their traffic. That's completely transparent, completely fair, and completely secure for the user. So anyway, that's one thing. I love that you mentioned navigation, Marvin. It just opens the doors to so many things. And yeah, at the end of the day, what we want to have is to actually fulfill that dream of trustless peer-to-peer. And you can only do that if you have your keys, your coins, and you can't do that if whenever you need to hop around, you have to do it with a centralized party. So yeah, we highly invite anybody listening to join that fight of having DEX supremacy over sex. And yeah, check us out. You can see mayascan.org. It's one of our explorers. You can see everything there, all the action happening. And if you want to get involved, you should also follow us on Twitter at Maya_protocol. Join our Discord. And yeah, we're here to help. You'll find a Cardano channel on our Discord, so you'll feel right at home. And looking forward for this proposal to get off the ground. Thank you for having us, Paul.
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, that's a good point on the integrations. I know from Ada Markets, the DEX aggregator that we've built, we're looking forward to having you guys on that as soon as it's ready. We want to have the integration there to allow people to swap straight into Cardano native assets from other chains. And Verdares, any closing thoughts from yourself on the proposal or on Maestro or anything else?
No, I mean, as far as the proposal, the folks here covered it pretty thoroughly. I mean, I just want to add also for Maestro, you know, this is really very much aligned with one of our frontiers as a company, as a project in Cardano, is to enable interoperability with the community. So, you know, this is very important for us, and we really want to work on it and help make it happen. Also, I'm a huge fan of your channel, so thanks for all the work you're doing for the community.
All right, thanks very much. Look, guys, thanks very much for your time today. Hopefully it's enlightened people to cross-chain swaps, different ways that it can be done, and as well as highlighting your proposal for anyone who wants to see, I suppose, decentralized cross-chain swaps coming to Cardano. The links will be down below. Subscribe if you're new, share it out, let others know what's going on. I'll put links to everything we talked about here, the proposals, Maya and Maestro down below. Any builders, make sure you check out Maestro too. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. See ya.
Bye-bye. Take care.